This is the Lighthouse Keepers Podcast, brought to life by Mary Ellen Sherlock and Anthony Marone, and his WIN Foundation in collaboration with the Joshua Foundation. Our mission is straightforward. In a world often focused on the individual, this podcast seeks to shine a light on the remarkable collective spirit of humanity. We're dedicated to bringing you inspiring conversations with exceptional organizations and individuals devoted to creating a better world.
Welcome to another segment of the Lighthouse Keepers. Today we have two giants, in my opinion, that have met. They both have their own programs, but now they're interacting within one another. My name is Anthony Marone. I am the co-founder of the WIN Foundation. The WIN Foundation stands for Why in Heaven's Name. And it comes from the theme from my first book, was why in heaven's name did God allow innocent young children to be sick? And I wrote the book to get an answer, and I did get my answer. What we're doing here today with my partner, Mary Ellen Sherlock, we are funding the taping of this telecast. And the main purpose of the telecast or the podcast is to bring attention to ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things. Heroes. I'm looking at two heroes, and I'm going to turn it over to my heroes because they don't think they are heroes. They're givers. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote to the community extraordinary people, ordinary people doing these extraordinary things, and also not-for-profits that are out there that are doing wonderful things, but they don't have the funding. And we're trying to make the recognition of those not-for-profits. The WIN Foundation is all about attention to others and hopefully funding those programs. So if I turn it over right now to Gary and Bob Policastro, basically what I want to do is I introduced the two of you. And coming down, Gary drove down from Albany this morning. And as he's driving down, he's speaking to Bob. And I would like you, maybe Gary, to start it off, kick it off, explain what your program is. The city mission of Schenectady. You have a lot of different hats. Mm-hmm. So I think you would be better off explaining, and the interaction of the two of you, the thing about the Cabrini Foundation. And Bob, where we were talking in the beginning where there was funding problems and how the two of you came together. We were together when you did come together. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could explain a little of that, Gary.
I'm in a lot of different gardens. City Mission happens to be one of them right now, where they accepted me to be a part of their team. And it's and we work with the homeless population, people with disabilities, people with mental health, and also with the Joshua Project Incorporated that was founded during the floods. That was the one 501(c) that I started, but Patrick Costello now runs that and keeps that going. Then. Of course, my mentor, Father Joe Grisone, who started the Joshua Foundation and entrusted it to me to be able to continue to do the retreats and keep the talks and things going. And then that's how, we ran across each other, Anthony, through Father Grisone. And then you brought me down here and I met Bob. And when I saw what Bob was doing with people with disabilities, and having worked in nursing homes as clergy before, being assigned to hospitals and nursing homes and going to TBI units and working with children, and then walking into Bob's house where he has people with some major disabilities and not smelling like a nursing home or a hospital at all, and not even having that same atmosphere, and seeing this young girl come out in a wheelchair with a beautiful 16-year-old attitude, like, what are you doing here, but saying good morning and telling me her name. It was, I was just so impressed with what Bob was doing. I would have to say that, Bob and you are my hero here. I can't see myself as a hero, I guess. When you say we're givers, it's almost as if, when we step aside and we allow God to take control of our lives and we truly surrender, God's the one who's always giving. And because we allow him to give through us, he allows us the opportunity to be able to receive. And oh my gosh, that receiving is just to receive so much from so many and from so many people. I mean, I'm just humbled by the experiences I've had. I don't even call them the poor. I think they're so much richer than I am that you need to immerse yourself in the experience and to just love the person before you as God would, and everything else shows itself. And
Bob, in addition to your home or your homes, maybe you could describe what you're doing in-house and what you're doing outside of the house for the families that you cater to. And without your services, again, when I look at Bob, I think of Michael Landon and Highway to Heaven. Because if you're not there, these people that are with special circumstances, I don't know where they would turn to. So what exactly is the program?
First, I mean, as far as hero, same here. For me to accept the thank you, I deflect it because spiritually I've been given a gift to follow a mission that my wife and I experienced, and the thanks go there. I mean, if God didn't give me, the gift of being able to help move things forward, and that's where my credit is. My gratefulness is that I was given that gift. And to be in a circumstance in life where, you're given that kind of mission and that it's so much more than yourself, I can't even begin to try to put into words.
Go into what is the mission? What are the services, Bob?
So what was really beautiful is, after the passing of my daughter 36 years ago, the country started to realize kids like her were living in hospitals. And they said, there's got to be a better way. And there was a better way. It was a moment where government did amazing things in making decisions of basically saying, you know what, how do we get kids out of the hospital? And they realized, wow, they're no longer being covered by insurance, they're being covered by Medicaid. And government said, you know what, let's let Medicaid follow that child home. Let's create an exception to the rule, or what they call it, a waiver. It's been miraculous. For me to watch that program take hold and for us to be able to help over 700 kids in the community to be able to be safely cared for at home because they not only have the parents' insurance, but they have that specialty Medicaid, which is basically what offers that, home care, which is very expensive. And the average family, there's no way they could afford that. And then it takes it even, further. If a home needs to be adapted to make it safer for the child, if there's specialty equipment that's needed, it helps support that. It has made home care just amazing alternative for parents, because that's the best place for the kids to be, with their parents and in home. And it's saved our state and country millions of dollars by doing that. And sometimes I get concerned that gets lost historically, because you just see the program as it exists today and you don't see the problems. I came in when somebody in Albany had just finished research and was showing how kids were stuck throughout the state. And so it was a big problem that we were experiencing. And then for me, I always believed in the umbrella of services. And one of the greatest missions I had was I knew that certain kids couldn't live at home for a magnitude of reasons, and never out of a lack of love by a parent. So I felt a comfortable environment. So I said I didn't want an institutional setting. I felt it was just the worst thing that a kid can live under. I said, let's make homes. Let's make like mini hospitals, many nursing homes, but in a beautiful home environment.
This is actually a home.
So the home that you guys visited with him more recently, that was the first of its kind in New York State, with the ability to care for kids that are even ventilator dependent. And, unfortunately,
Amazing.
some of these kids, you wouldn't know. The average person would look and think that maybe they're in a coma. It's just a body that doesn't work. Their mind is there, and with AI now, how they can communicate. For me, it's beautiful because they deserve that. Because you imagine being in a body that doesn't want to work and you still want to communicate. So for me, to be able to do those homes and help the kids in the community, like that's the greatest gift I could ever want. It's just to know that no one has to be and live kind of the experience that my wife and I lived.
So I want to just take it from there, Bob. A couple of months ago, we were speaking at a golf outing, and the government is cutting back, major funding cutbacks. And you said to me that, heck, we might have to maybe close a home, which is impossible. It can't happen. That's what I said. Impossible. Can't happen. And then just so happened, Gary here was installed on the Cabrini Foundation, I think around November.
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
So it happened just the same thing. And Cabrini, I'd like you to explain that, because I want you to explain what you saw when you went into that home that day when we went in, and the fact that Cabrini has money and a lot of not-for-profits should possibly turn to Cabrini in New York State, and how that whole thing works.
So when I saw what Bob was doing there, and when I went into the children's rooms and was able to speak to them and see the difference in life, especially with the one girl there, and just the talent and stuff she has that was lost when she was in the hospital. The way my mind works is, number one is there's beautiful human beings here. There's children here. There's youth. There's energy. There's feelings and there's emotions that are happening within those bodies, and and God is in there. God's light is in there, and how great it would be for them to be able to express themselves and be able to talk about their feelings and talk about their emotions, and have somebody understand, and to be able to be in relationship with another human being. I mean, that's where God calls us to be, in relationship with one another and to foster love. And from there, healing takes place. And who knows what the outcome could be or something like that. And we were talking on the way up, whether it be Cabrini or whether it be, how do we create a model for children to be able to enter into an environment that are dealing with these disabilities. But as my good friend of mine, Dr. Joe Gatkowski, works with people with disabilities, and he wrote this book called Perfectly Human. How can we see that they are perfectly human and that they are children of God? And how do we create this model? We talked about, okay, who, man, we're talking on the way down here, and I said, Bob, who would you put at the table? Who are the people? Who are the experts? Who are the doctors? Who are the people in the state? How can we put this together? And as a matter of fact, as he was talking about this, I do have a Zoom meeting with Cabrini next week, and I do have a meeting with somebody very high up in the state next week. So, really the ball's already rolling. And I said, by the time Easter comes, which is April 20th, I said, we should have our first meeting set up, because that's the Easter season. That's when things are resurrected. That's when new life begins. And I mean, I'm just getting excited even thinking about it. I don't know what the future holds or how God is going to, unfold this before us. The lighthouse, basically, always shift your gaze back to God, shift your gaze back to that light, and He will guide us to that place that we need to be. And one of the things that I found is when you're doing God's will, when you're doing it to will the good of the other, there is nothing that is impossible. And I think it's almost offensive to God to think too small. We begin one person at a time, but when God places these things before you, when He places these these things that tug at your spirit, and I mean really tug at where God is speaking to us at the deepest levels of our being, then He's asking us to take a deeper look at something and to dive in, and He's trying to show us something. And He says, I'll give you everything you need to be able to accomplish this, but you will need others that are able to see me in the midst of this that I'm beginning to create. And that's where the wisdom of people coming together and God's Spirit just begins to, that's where that lighthouse becomes brighter and brighter and brighter, where after a while, nobody can look away from its light.
Bob,
It's kind of the definition of really when you think of faith.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite words is hope. So that's what I hold on to. As you know, it took me 10 years to get the first house. It's unfortunate as time moves on and then regulations change and problems occur, and then all of a sudden there's disparity in funding that our beautiful houses are kind of being left out of that picture. It becomes, how do you awaken people to the fact that, what you're doing is a model that should be respected and replicated more and more. I was also talking to Gary about knowing that, especially as close as I am to the kids, there's levels of palliative care and hospice care, and for the many kids that are in home care, to get a break sometimes is so essential. And that's why it's also important to remember how much money is being saved. Like, don't be afraid of some of what you might be considering a new cost. Should never forget the millions of dollars that was overspent on kids getting stuck in hospitals. Still to this day, it happens. And with some of the red tape is part of the work that we want to try to, cut out of there, because it's not healthy for a kid, for anybody to be in the hospital for extended periods of time.
Bob, one thing I'd like you to share is when you were up at the legislators' rallies, you just decided to take a ride up to see his mission. You got to tell the folks at home.
Well, first of all, just when I first met Gary at the house, I felt the spirit in him.
He's got energy.
And
you really do, Gary.
And it's so contagious. I told you and I told Gary that a week later I still felt that, because it's almost like when you started talking about being, a hero or whatever. I'm like, it's not who we are. Mm-hmm. And to know somebody else that feels the same way is so to visit, and as humble as Gary is, as I was getting a tour of his place, like people say, how do you know when you're successful? Or how do you know if your mission is? So I will forever remember walking through the area where they were serving food. And he's walking through and it was as if the President of the United States was walking in there, but with this, their eyes and their expression was said it all, which is kind of how I judge. And I feel like the way he gives is so beautiful. And then as we were watching over, then we went outside, and then he meets a gentleman that was just got out of being incarcerated. And again, unfortunately, sometimes in our community, we look down at people if they maybe don't have the money, the job, can feed themselves, have a home, and there's many circumstances that happen that push people into that. But here we walk outside, and a recent gentleman that got out of being incarcerated, but seeing the smile on that guy's face when he looked at Gary, and then Gary taking a few steps forward and both of them embracing and hugging, like that alone is a gift beyond any monetary, because what Gary meant to him is an encouragement for him to take his life and move forward. And that's how deep I look at life. And And I think it's absolutely beautiful because that guy knowing that the mission was there and that's going to help him move forward, and he was so excited to share it with Gary, and Gary was so excited to see him, that to me, like the gift, I know what he gets from that because you're changing a life.
Difference.
Yes.
You're making a difference. What's that thing when Jesus said, if you could just save one? What's that, Gary?
The thing that I think about Jesus and the best way that we can do him service is like we were speaking before. And, this came out of prayer this morning. As a matter of fact, when I was journaling, and, our Lord says to the crowd who's, excuse me, our Lord says to the crowd who keeps trying to, find what he's doing wrong and what laws he's breaking and what rules. And our Lord says, look, if you don't believe in me, then believe in the things that I do. And it's almost as if he's saying to the crowd, you see a man here. You're looking at flesh. But here I am. And when we think of the words I am represents the presence of God in our midst. And beneath that flesh, God is fully present and showing himself to the world. And because he gave his life for us, he's offered us that same gift. How do we go out and allow God's light to shine without ever even realizing it's happening? And that's giving our lives over to God. And, I don't know who gave more with that encounter with my buddy when he came out of prison, because I was just so happy to see him and see that he was out and had another chance at getting his life back together. It's powerful. And God is amazing, and I don't think amazing or awe. I don't think there are words that can express what happens in life when we allow ourselves to enter into the experiences of people's lives and suffering. I mean, you use the word hope, and I started smiling because all these things that are happening right now, we've just entered into our Jubilee year, which is a Jubilee year of hope. And the group that Bishop Ed, our bishop up in Albany, started with this team that's been going back and forth to the Vatican is called Hope from the Margins. Not hope for the margins, like we're going to bring them hope, but rather hope from the margins, because they are giving us the hope, and it continues to, oh my gosh, just grow and grow, and not 20 times or 50, but 100 times. The fruit just continues to be born, and it's beautiful, beautiful.
God
yeah.
bless.
And if we can be a light for another person, then you know what, I love taking the back seat. And I mean, this is kind of all different for me. I just love being in the corner.
Well, one of the key for all the three of us is funding, to get the community attention and know that there are people giving. One of the greatest gifts we have is to give, right? That's what we like to do. We don't think of ourselves as a hero. We like to do that. And that's what the podcast is about, to tell the community at this point, we need your help.
And to come and see.
Come and see.
Come and see. You know what? I think the invitation, come and see what you're giving to. In the Didache it says, don't let so much as a penny leave your hand unless you know exactly where it's going. If you come and see, and your heart isn't moved, and you aren't open, and you don't see that, your donation, whether it be a dime or a dollar or whatever it is, that it's not making an impact in somebody's life, then, we a lot of times we like to give and be separated from where we're giving, and we don't know where that money's going or how it's being used. But to be able to follow it to a human being who's receiving the rewards and receiving it in love and care and dignity and being lifted up, that's the most powerful thing in the world. And I don't ever remember asking for money or doing anything like that, because I know that God will provide as long as we're doing the right thing. So when people say, how do I do that? Come and see. Come and see. You're always invited. The door's always open, and just...
You agree with that, Bob?
Well, like I said,
because we've got to close this out. But
when you see results, when you see people going through a tough time, and if you've never gotten close enough, like for me, it was a gift to go and visit Gary to see what he was doing to help others. Like, that's what I think our society needs more of. Not to look down on people, whether it's because of their disability or the tough times that they might have gone or the rough childhood that they might have experienced, and myriad of reasons why people might be in a low situation. But how do you sit there and realize that if they're helped, it probably is one of the greatest gifts you can ever get as a person, even if you can't give money, to be a part of something where you could see the work that's being done in the community. And there's so many important nonprofits out there that are doing God's work every day. You know, that should be the spirituality that everybody takes from our society and draw away the negativity, because there is so much positive. And that's what the Lighthouse is about. It's about, you know, the light is there. And you just have to be willing to see it.
But the real gift that we get is giving. Mm-hmm. That's what Jesus said.
And the Lighthouse sheds the light on if we're in the right garden and we're doing God's work. The Lighthouse not only sheds the light on those who come and see and give, but it begins to allow us to be able to see who those donors are and how we can obtain those resources to go to that next step.
So basically, as we close out, what we're asking with the podcast is we're reaching out to the public community help. We're going to have contact information listed. Angela's house, the city mission. Okay, what we're doing at the Wynn Foundation, send money, support. But the gift is when you give, we help. And it's kind of like, that's what it's about. That we get something from giving. Yeah. That's what the three of us get.
The gift.
We're not heroes, we get something.
Right.
Which is kind of like a Jesus thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for this session. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank
and
you.
Gary. Thanks for taking the trip down.
Yeah.
Trip.
Always wonderful to be with you
Thank
both.
you.
This is special because these are very dear friends of mine.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. Remember that lighthouses symbolize hope. With hope, we persevere and inspire positive change. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep shining your light.